fun.
Good morning. I'm Greg Longini, Assistant Secretary to the Chicago Transit Board. On April 12th, the Office of the Secretary issued a notice of change format of meetings of the Committee of Finance, Audit, and Budget and the Transit Board scheduled for April 20th, 2022. There is currently in effect a statewide disaster declaration as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has been renewed from month to month since the start of the pandemic. Pursuant to Section 70 of the Open Meetings Act, virtual public meetings are permitted while the disaster proclamation remains in effect. Chairman Silver, we may begin the Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee meeting.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to call to order the April 20th, 2022 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Will the Secretary call the roll?
Director Miller.
Here.
Director Irving.
Here.
Director Jakes.
Here.
Director Ortiz.
Here.
Director Barkley.
Here.
Chairman Silva.
Here.
We have a quorum with all 6 members of the committee present. We may proceed to item number 2.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of March 9, 2022. May I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
By Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Irving.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Ortiz.
Yes.
Director Barkley.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Here.
You vote yes for the minutes.
Yes.
The motion passes with 6 yes votes. We may proceed to item number 3, sir.
Our next order of business is the finance report. Jeremy Fine.
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'll be reviewing the year-to-date numbers as well as numbers for February of 2022. On the first page, you see farebox and pass totals coming in relatively close to the budgeted levels for 2022. Slightly positive for farebox, slightly negative for passes. Overall, we're down, but essentially flat, but down by about $600,000 to the budget. More importantly, is to point out that we're about $6 million to the positive of where we were this time last year. Reduced fare subsidy continues to come in as expected, albeit this is at lower levels than what we have historically received. Non-farebox totals coming in essentially flat, but slightly down by about $200,000 to the budget. But again, versus this time last year, we were up by about $400,000. So overall, for the month of February, we see total revenues down by about $800,000 to the budget, but positive to February of 2021 by over $6 million. On the next page, we see year-to-date numbers for revenues, farebox and pass totals coming in about $400,000 down to the budgeted estimate, but over $10.5 million positive to 2021 year-to-date. Reduced fare subsidy coming in as expected. Non-farebox totals down about $300,000 to the budgeted year-to-date estimate, but positive by about $500,000 of this time last year. Total revenues coming in about $700,000 below the budgeted year-to-date estimate, but over $11 million better than the 2021 year-to-date numbers. On the next page, you see our expenses. We continue to do a great job of controlling our expenses. Across the board here, we see positive favorability, whether it be labor, material, fuel, power, security services, or other expenses, which leaves us for the month of February positive by $14.2 million. When you net this against our revenues, we're positive by $13.4 million for the month of February. On the next page, you see the year-to-date numbers. You see labor, materials, fuel, power, and security services continuing to track favorably. Other expenses, as we discussed last month, there was some negative variance in January because of the timing of some invoices. But again, this month we reversed a portion of that, but we're slightly negative on that particular line item. But overall, we've already seen year-to-date expenses positive by $16.4 million. When you net this against our revenues, we're $15.7 million to the positive. On the next page, you see our public funding. This page outlines public funding received for the month. So it's a combination of both receipts for 2021 and for 22. Sales tax, we now have received the December numbers. We're positive by over $18 million to the amended budget, almost $20 million to the original budget. PTF, RET, and PTF on RET is all related to 22 receipts, and we're seeing positive favorability on those various line items. And then the ICE funding is related to December of 21, and we see about $200,000 of positive favorability there. So either on an amended budget basis compared to the 21 amended budget, for the month, the receipts are about $18.5 million to the positive, and the positive favorable variance that we're seeing across the board on the original budgets are about $27.5 million. On the next page, we break it down by year for 2021. And now that we've received the sales tax receipts through December of 21, we now have a full picture of how favorable we came in on a year-to-date basis for budget and calendar year 2021. We see against the amended budget almost $220 million of positive favorability and almost $280 million against the original budget. On the next page, you see 22 results. We still have not received sales tax for January of 22, but we have started receiving PTF through March, almost $10 million of favorability there. RET through February, almost $6 million of favorability there. And PTF on RET through February, and almost $1.5 million of favorability there. So overall, it's almost $16.7 million of positive variance to budgeted estimates for public funding for 2022 so far. With regard to our relief funding, CARES, CRISA, ARP, and the recently awarded but not yet executed ARP discretionary funds, you see here CARES has been fully exhausted over the last year plus. CRISA, we're drawing down another $23 million to cover shortfalls here for the month. So that's about 9% of the overall allocation. And then ARP and ARP discretionary are shown here. What we anticipate in the coming months is we'll start drawing down against the 3 remaining relief funds to keep those grants active as we continue to move forward. So CRISA, ARP, and ARP discretionary, you'll start seeing draws against all of those as we continue on through 2022. With regard to our commodity purchases, we're now about 50% locked in for 2023. We've been able to make some selective purchases on our diesel, purchases that we need. And while the market is very volatile, up and down on a daily basis, but we have been able to selectively purchase, portions of that needed supply for 2023 over the last several weeks, months, and we've been able to lock it in at relatively low prices, when we see dips in the market. So we'll continue to look for those selective opportunities for the remaining portion of the 23 volume, as well as, potential opportunities to pick up some volume for 24 and 5. Currently, we're locked in at a pretty good place for power and natural gas, but as always, we'll continue to look for selective opportunities there as well. That concludes my prepared remarks for the February FAB. Glad to answer any questions.
Yes, in the oil, you have 50%, okay, already. Do you see, okay, that this it may be okay to a number, okay, that will get us in problems?
So, currently our blended rate for what we have purchased on the 50% level, we're essentially at $2.63 per gallon. And as you can tell, that is substantially less than what you see at the pump. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Our particular blend of diesel is different than unleaded fuel. And we're also buying a year out in advance. So there is a slight discount from what you're seeing in the spot market. We are continuing to look at selective opportunities when market conditions dip a little bit to purchase the additional 25-30% of fuel that we anticipate needing for 2023. Right now, market prices are higher than that. They're in about the $3 type range, but they're fluctuating wildly. So again, we'll continue to look for selective opportunities to buy more of the 2023 volume that we need and continue to apprise the board of those purchases. But again, we're working with our fuel advisor, Amoresco, frankly, on a daily basis, continuing to evaluate the market because it is very, very volatile. And right now we've seen, hopefully what we hope is a short-term escalation in prices that don't really kind of, follow kind of normal convention as to why it's so high right now. But yesterday you saw a little bit of oil pricing coming down. So hopefully that's a good sign that things are starting to subside.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much.
Director Barkley? Any questions?
No questions. No questions.
Director Ortiz?
No questions. Thank you.
Director Jakes?
No questions, Greg.
Director Irving?
No questions. Thank you.
Director Miller?
No question.
All right, thank you. Chairman, there's no further questions, so we may proceed to item number 4.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a co-promotional trade agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events for 2022. Jeremy.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, Chief Financial Officer. Today, I present for your consideration a co-promotional trade agreement with the City of Chicago's Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, known as DCASE. We've been doing this co-promotion with DCASE or its predecessor since 1992. The total trade value of this year's co-promotional agreement is $817,500. This co-promotional agreement covers 16 DCASE programs and events taking place in 2022. The list once again includes some of DCASE's biggest events like the Gospel Music Fest, Blues Festival, Taste of Chicago, Chicago Air and Water Show, as well as smaller events and public awareness campaigns like the Chicago Made TV and Film campaign. DCASE will promote CTA at each of these programs and events in various ways, including on signage at events and email newsletters and with travel information at the event websites. CTA will also be invited to have a dedicated space at Taste of Chicago and the Air and Water Show and one DCASE music program at Millennium Park. CTA may use our dedicated space to feature the community bus, and in exchange, the CTA will provide unsold interior car card space on bus and rail for DCASE to promote its programs and events. This concludes my presentation, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
What do we foresee, okay, that prices may have to move up, okay, for them, okay, or for us, accordingly, okay, to how the market is doing?
Yeah, so this is based on, the value of the car cards in our system. And again, we get that full value, on their promotional materials as well. So this is really a win-win for both of us. It's unsold advertising space that we're able to engage with DCASE So we're able to get that full value that we would have otherwise gotten through an advertisement, and again, promote these special events that are being hosted by the city's DCASE department that will drive ridership to the CTA system. And, again, it's been a very big win for us in the past. And we anticipate that, things are getting back to normal here in 22 after a bit of a lull in 21 on special events. So we're very excited to again, see the full breadth of programming rolled out from DCASE.
Do we participate in the Lollapalooza festival?
Yes, that's a different, engagement. But yes, we typically have, community bus, and other things involved in the Lollapalooza concert.
Thank you.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Ortiz?
No questions.
Director
I think,
Jake?
No questions. No questions.
Director Irving?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Chairman Silver, there are no further questions on this item.
May I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. Chairman, we may now proceed to item number 5.
Our next order of business is an ordinance to authorizing the continuation of University Pass, UPass, contract terms previously amended due to the COVID-19 pandemic for the summer 2022 term. Jeremy.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and today for your consideration, I present a proposal to continue to offer flexibility of certain University Pass, known as UPass, contract provisions due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Colleges and universities have experienced drastic and unique enrollment challenges since March of 2020. Due to these changes, CTA has offered schools the flexibility of selectively enrolling students who want a UPass for a given term instead of mandatory participation required by the UPass contract. The board previously approved enrollment flexibility through the spring of 2022. In conversations with many schools, staff has learned that in-person classes will still be limited for summer of 2022. While these reductions are not as significant as those that were seen in the 2020 through 2022 academic terms, there will still be a significant portion of students that will learn remotely and not require travel to and from campus. As these schools have been valued partners of CTA for the past several years, and to provide incentives for schools to remain in the program, staff recommends continuing flexibility to schools regarding certain UPass contract terms through the summer of 2022 academic term. Per the current UPass agreement, all full-time students must be assigned and charged for a UPass during terms in which they are enrolled. Offering flexible terms to participating schools will allow students to continue to use CTA services. Without such flexibility during these unique and challenging times, many participating schools have expressed that they would cancel their current UPass agreements with the CTA. This concludes my prepared remarks, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
So if they cancel, okay, what will be our position, okay, if they cancel the UPass?
So this has been a wildly successful program for us that, we were first of its kind in the nation. It's been replicated throughout the country because it really incentivizes university students to start riding the system. And hopefully when they become gainfully employed after their education, they'll continue to ride the system. We do not want to see, we've taken a long time to build up the stable of schools, colleges, and universities within this program. And we currently have about 70 participating schools. We have not lost any of those schools during the pandemic, which is quite amazing. In fact, we added 2 new programs to the system or to the program over the last couple of years. And we don't want to see a degradation in that stable of schools that are participating in this, because it has been very successful. And, again, I think that by providing the flexibility that we're proposing here for your consideration, it will continue to keep the schools in the program as we continue to look for the future on how to best position this program for the future.
Good. Let's keep it up.
Director Silva, you asked a question about, can they cancel? The answer to that is yes. They always have the ability to cancel the program if they don't want to. But I think, to Jeremy's point, because of the longevity of the program, because of its popularity at the various schools that are benefiting from the program, I would find it pretty hard to believe that schools would cancel it at this point in time. I think Jeremy and his team have done a really good job of listening to the schools and identifying ways in which we can address those concerns while still meeting the ultimate objectives of the program itself. And I would say our relationship with these schools is probably better than it's ever been because of the way in which we've set up the program right now. And I think we can take some comfort in the fact that I think the schools that we have in this program will continue to stay there in the foreseeable future. And as Jeremy indicated, we may even be able to start to attract some more schools that have been reluctant to be a part of the program to join.
That's good. Thank you.
Director Barkley, any questions?
No question, just a comment. First, I commend you, Jeremy, and your team. This is very creative. You built this up. Like you said, this has been a national model, and this is good. Students love this program, and I don't think even if the universities, decided they want to pull out, the students wouldn't let them pull out because it's a big advantage for them. So, this is good.
Thank you.
Director Ortiz.
Yes, I want to echo the importance of this program. I think it makes a huge difference. And I think it also helps build the ridership in the future. If we can connect with them, we can provide good service to them. I think we can keep them for a long time. And I think that's really important. I didn't mention in the other comment, but the partnership with our arts partner from the city, I think it's also a really important one. So I want to commend your team and the rest of CTA as well together for taking on these partnerships. They're very important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Jakes.
Everything everyone else said. I had no questions.
Director Irvine.
I gotta echo that. I mean, it's a great program. I'm glad it's continuing and thriving and growing. So thank you.
Director Miller.
I say ditto to all of those. No questions.
There are no further questions, Chairman Silver, on this matter.
May I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz. We may now proceed to item number 6, Chairman.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing an amendment to a sublease to Chicago Public Schools for space located at 567 West Lake Street, Chicago, Illinois. Bill Mooney.
Good morning, Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing an amendment to a sublease to Chicago Public Schools at 567 West Lake Street. CPS currently subleases 5,067 square feet of office space in the building pursuant to Transit Board Ordinance number 018-79. CPS wishes to amend the sublease for an additional 6,185 square feet of space on the 10th floor of the building. CPS will pay the same rental rate as set forth under their current sublease, which is currently $26.50 per square foot, for an additional monthly rent of $13,659 per month. CPS will also be responsible for covering the cost of interior alterations related to the additional sublease space, as well as a proportionate share of the building expenses. I'll be happy to take any questions at this time.
Who is renting it right now?
The space was currently being used by CTA staff, and we're reconsolidating some of it to make it available to CPS. So it's ultimately vacant space we have available for rental.
Okay, thank you.
Director Barkley.
No questions.
Ortiz.
No questions.
Director Jakes,
No questions.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller.
No questions.
There are no further questions on this matter, Chairman Silva.
May I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
We may now proceed, Chairman Silva, to the contract, starting with A1.
Our next order of business is contract number A1, an engine repair contract. No questions.
Director Barkley,
No questions.
Director Ortiz,
No questions.
Director Jakes,
No questions.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller.
No questions.
We may proceed to contract number B1, Chairman.
Our next order of business is contract number B1, a machine contract. No questions.
Director Barkley.
No.
Director Ortiz,
No questions.
Director Jakes,
No questions.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller.
No question.
And there's no questions, further questions on this matter. Chairman, we may proceed to C1.
Our next order of business is contract number C1, a guard services contract.
Any questions, sir?
How many people bid, okay, for this contract, Helene?
There were 6 companies that bid on this contract.
And is the company, okay, that we won, okay, still ahead of everybody?
Very good.
Very good.
Yes. SBE, and they've done work for the Metropolitan Pier and Exposition Authority, Chicago Housing, Taste of Chicago and Lollapalooza, Midway Airport, Department of Transportation, and so on. So they've come very highly recommended, and they have a lot of great experience. Very similar
Has
to what
the-
they'll be.
Has the problem, okay, that happened, okay, in New York with this, has that had an effect, okay, on us? The problem, okay, with this individual, okay, that use some guns, okay, in the New York.
You're talking about the terrorist attack?
Yeah, yes.
Yes. No, it hasn't had any direct impact on us, Director Silva. We were obviously informed of the incident when it occurred, and we monitored it very closely throughout the day. We got a lot of good intelligence from the police department and our sources in New York itself to understand what was going on during the incident. During that time, both the police and CTA were at a heightened alert. We issued additional messaging to our employees and to our customers to see something, say something, and obviously monitored very closely how the investigation was unfolding in New York. But at the end of the day, there was no known threat or concern at CTA that anyone was aware of. We had no unusual incidents throughout the day, and fortunately, the New York police were able to capture the individual who they suspect was involved in this, ending the concern at this point in time about any threat to either New York or any other transit system.
Thanks very much for your comments.
Director Barkley,
No comments.
Director Ortiz,
No comments.
Director Jakes,
No questions.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller.
No question.
And we're finished with this item, Chairman Silva. We may proceed to contract F1.
Our next order of business is contract number F1, parts and supplies contract. No questions.
Director Barkley,
No questions.
Director Ortiz,
No other questions.
Director Jakes,
No questions.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller.
No question.
We're finished with this item, sir. We may proceed to contract G1.
Our next order of business is contract number G1, an IT contract.
Any questions, sir?
Can you go over, okay, this contract, Helen?
Yes, so we went out for services for our IT, and we awarded to SCI. We've been working with them, and they've done a great job. They will provide things such as desktop management and support services, data systems management and support services, network systems management and support services, help desk support services, and asset management services.
Is he the one that used to have the contract
Yes, they did have the contract previously.
previously?
PA has been very happy with them. Carolyn may have more information.
Good. I would like to see you happy.
Good morning, directors. Yes, the SDI Presence is our incumbent vendor. They are a DBE graduate from our own DBE program, and they are assisted by two other DBE vendors, Smart Technology Services and INOC, to provide these services. They have consistently had they've consistently met their DBE goals, their service level agreements, and have a customer service rating of 4.8 out of 5 over many years. So we are very happy to continue our relationship with them.
Good.
Director Barkley, any questions?
No question.
Director Ortiz,
No questions.
Director Jakes,
No questions.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller.
No questions.
There's no further questions on this matter, Chairman. We may proceed to contract number H1.
Our next order of business is contract number H1, security contracts. I don't have questions.
Director Barkley,
No questions.
Director Ortiz,
No questions.
Director Jakes,
No questions.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller.
No questions.
No further questions, sir. We may proceed to contract J1.
Our final order of business is contract number J1, a change order for a law contract. No questions.
Director Barkley,
No question.
Director Ortiz,
No questions.
Director Jakes,
No questions.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller.
No questions.
There are no further questions on this item, Chairman, so we may proceed to number 7A.
Since there are no further questions on the contracts, may I have leave to place the 7 contracts on the omnibus?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, second by Director Ortiz. Matt, you may now proceed to number 7B.
Since there is no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to approve the omnibus and recommend the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. I'll take the vote. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Barkley,
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
Motion to approve the omnibus is approved with 6 yes votes. We will proceed to number 8.
And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. I'll take the vote. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Barkley,
Yes.
Director Chairman Silva.
Yes.
Motion passed with 6 yes votes. So we are adjourned. Why don't we just take a 2-minute break and then start up on the board meeting? If that's all right with the board. Chairman Barr? Good morning, this is Greg Longini again. We're about to start the regular scheduled meeting of the Chicago Transit Board. Chairman Silva, I'm sorry, Chairman Barkley.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for April 20th, 2022. Would the secretary call the roll, please?
Yes, Director Miller,
Here.
Director Silva,
Here.
Director Jakes,
Here.
Director Ortiz,
Here.
Director Irvine,
Here.
Chairman Barkley.
Here.
We have a quorum with all 6 members of the board present, sir.
Our first order of business this morning is public comment. Greg?
Yes, we have one public comment speaker, Ms. Olivia Gahan. Ms. Gahan, could you address the board, please? Thank you.
Ms. Gahan, you're muted. Can you press *6 to unmute?
#6. Good morning, board.
Good morning.
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 My name is Olivia Gahan, and I'm a resident of Avondale. I live really close to the Blue Line, and like many CTA writers, have been feeling the effects of the ongoing delays, especially over the past 3 months as I've been returning back to work. And so I love the CTA, I love public transit. So I've done a lot of research on like what's happening, and I was trying to find answers of why there is this persistent delay. And I found some really great news. I saw the new union agreement. I've seen a couple training trains out on the tracks. But I was curious what the board is doing, how you all are thinking about getting the train schedules back on its standard, especially now that folks are being asked to come back into the office.
Thank you, Ms. Gahan, for your comments and your question. I think that those pose, questions that deserve a response. And so I'm going to ask President Carter to direct the appropriate staff to respond directly to the concerns that you have raised. And hopefully you'll get a satisfactory response.
Thank you.
Chairman Barkley, if I may, I just want to add to Ms. Gahan, I really appreciate your feedback. And as a regular transit rider, I share your concerns. We did have a discussion about some of the issues around the train and bus trackers at the service planning, strategic planning and service delivery subcommittee meeting at last month's meeting. So I'd encourage you to go back to YouTube. And I forget the exact number of minutes in, but it's early in the meeting when we had that discussion. So I encourage you to check that out. Thank you.
And just to further add to the comments of the chairman and Director Irvine, we obviously are recognize the challenges that we have had to our service, a lot of which has had to do with the internal manpower issues that we've had here at CTA. The good news is that that's improving. We're starting to get our employees back, and we hope that you're going to see an improvement in the quality of service on the Blue Line, as well as the service on all the other lines in our system. We still have challenges that we're working through, but my staff will follow up with you directly to talk about any of the incidents that you specifically mentioned in your comment, and to provide you with additional information and detail about what we're doing to try to address this problem.
Yeah, and I know that the pay raise or the pay for new employees has gone up. Scheduling is made easier for new employees, and yeah, so I'm hopeful, that it's improving. But yes, any additional information would be helpful. Yeah, and with the COVID relief money coming in as well. Great, yeah. Okay. I don't know if there's anything else to add from any of the directors about staffing, or like how are you all recruiting staff? I've seen a couple of ads on the buses and stuff, which is really exciting.
You raised an interesting point, and Director Chairman Barkley, maybe what we can plan to do is at our upcoming board meeting, give the board a more complete presentation of what we've been doing in terms of our recruitment efforts. There are a lot of innovative things that we've added to our recruitment process to try to encourage and identify candidates for positions here at CTA, some of which came out of the new collective bargaining agreement that gave us more flexibility in how we hire people into the agency, and some of which is the work of my HR department to find new ways and approaches to inform and recruit candidates for the job. As you know, and this isn't unusual to the CTA, recruiting in general right now is a challenge for all companies, and we're certainly not immune to that. And we may absolutely want to give a better overview of sort of what we're doing and how we're approaching that, and give the board a better sense of the strategies that we are deploying to address the workforce challenges that we've had going forward, particularly in the wake of the pandemic.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'll just say I've talked to many friends. My particular demographic is one that is, I chose to live in the city because of its transit, because I don't have to have a car. Many of the folks I work with are in a similar situation, and we go out to restaurants and it's slower service or lower staff. So we're understanding of the staffing issue. The frustration has yes.
Ms. Gann, I want to thank you for your comments, but we need to move on now with the board meeting.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Gann. And also, Chairman and the board, we received a letter we received written comments from John Paul Jones and Sustainable Englewood Initiatives as well, which I will distribute after the board meeting. So that concludes the public comment section, Chairman Barkley.
Thank you, Greg. Before we move on to the next agenda item, I'd like to make a brief comment and request regarding system security. I think we would be remiss as a board if we did not acknowledge and address the recent concerns raised regarding security. I understand that CTA is coordinating with the Chicago Police Department as they deploy more officers to our system. President Carter, I think, would be very helpful to the board and to our ridership to receive an update on summer security plans from the Chicago Police Department at our next meeting. So, President Carter, I'm asking you if you would direct your staff to coordinate this so that we can have representation from CPD here at our next meeting to address some of the security concern issues that have been raised recently.
Absolutely, Chairman. I'm more than happy to coordinate with CPD and give a presentation to the board at the next board meeting. I will say that we are working very closely with the police department in coordinating and responding to activity on CTA. And I think that you will find the information that they can provide to the board very compelling, and I think interesting in terms of what's really happening on CTA and how we're addressing it.
Thank you. Our next order of business is the approval of the minutes of March 9th, 2022. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of March 9th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
By Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Irving,
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes, sir.
Our next order of business is executive session. It is my understanding, Brad, that there's no executive session scheduled for today.
That is correct, Chairman. There is no executive session today.
Then our next order of business are board matters. Agenda item number 5 is a resolution of appreciation to Director Kevin Irving. Would the secretary read the resolution, please?
Yes. Resolution of appreciation to Mr. Kevin Irving. Whereas Kevin Irving has served on the Chicago Transit Board for 11 years, and whereas throughout his tenure, Mr. Irving has exhibited dedication and transformational leadership in his advocacy for greater public transit accessibility. And whereas Mr. Irving serves as chairman of the board's Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery, where his thoughtful analysis and recommendations have greatly influenced Chicago Transit Authority policies, programs, and efficiencies. And whereas an avid public transit supporter and regular rider of CTA buses and trains, Mr. Irving offered rich insight from the customer's perspective. And whereas prior to his service on the board, Mr. Irving served as chair of the CTA Americans with Disabilities Act Advisory Committee for 6 years and represented the committee on the CTA's Infrastructure Accessibility Task Force, which developed policy recommendations to enhance accessibility on CTA rail stations. And whereas Mr. Irving's work on the ADA Advisory Committee and the IATF were instrumental in the development of the CTA's current All Stations Accessibility Program. And whereas in addition to his work on the ADA Advisory Committee, Mr. Irving's leadership and disability advocacy extends to his many professional and civic commitments, which include his work with Rush University Medical Center, Access Living, Equip for Equality, Disability Pride Parade, and Leadership Greater Chicago. And whereas Mr. Irving's commitment to accessibility for all is evident in his service on the board, and the authority is a better and more accessible transit system. As a result, now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Chicago Transit Board recognize and appreciate the extraordinary positive impact that Kevin Irving's service to the board has provided to the Chicago Transit Authority and the region's public transportation system. It further resolved that this resolution be spread of record upon the minutes of this meeting, and that a suitable copy be presented to Kevin Irving as an expression of our respect for and gratitude to him. Concludes the resolution, sir.
Thank you, Greg. Director Irving, I'd like to thank you for your dedicated service to this board and to the CTA. Your advocacy for accessibility for all CTA customers has been instrumental in CTA's industry leadership in system accessibility. Though we've served together on the board for a short time, I truly appreciated your support and have enjoyed working with you. Our paths to serving on the board are similar. Both of us served on the CTA Advisory Committee prior to our appointments to the board. Kevin, you will be greatly missed on the board, but you will never be a stranger to us. Thank you for your service and your dedication to CTA. I would now like to open it up to other board members who may have comments to share their appreciation of Kevin at this time.
I would also like to share my appreciation for all of your years of commitment. And although my time with you here on the board has been short, I really felt supportive, and I've learned a lot from you even in this short time. So thank you so much for your years of dedication. And we do hope to see you back again in other ways, supporting the CTA, giving us advice, sharing your thoughts. And thank you.
I want to say thank you, Kevin, for your service and for all you've done. We came on the board just to see your commitment, and you're just really going overboard, not just during the meeting, but all you do and the information you would bring to this board. Definitely you will be missed. And we just thank you for leadership that you have shared in your role, and the continuous being a rider and supporter of CTA certainly makes a great difference. And thank you so much. We will miss you.
Kevin, I have a confession to make. You know, when I learned of my appointment to the board, not from the office of the governor, but I learned it from you because you reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, congratulations to your appointment. And I was looking at LinkedIn and I said, congratulations to my appointment, Kevin Irving. And I started doing a deep dive and I said, oh, okay, so I must have been appointed to the CTA board. So I want to thank you for that. That way I didn't miss my first meeting. Yeah, it's been a joy the past couple of years, Kevin, sharing on the board with you, because you are exactly what the resolution stated. I couldn't have stated it any better. Your passion for not only the members of the board, but the city of Chicago, and especially making sure that we were ADA compliant was a breath of fresh air. And then also, man, you have like the coolest voice when we're sitting in meetings, and especially on the virtual, you just have like the coolest voice. Hey, we're going to miss you. And to echo what Chairman Barclay said, please don't be a stranger, my friend. And thank you for your service and your commitment and your love for humanity.
So,
yes, I have heard, I have spent the 11 years, that you've been in the board. You joined in, when I was already in the board, and I really seen the way, that you work, with everybody, and congratulate you, for all this time, and we will always be very proud, of all your comments, and the ADA support, that you do, and wish you all the very best. Thank you.
President Carter.
Boy. I have some prepared remarks here for you, Kevin, that my staff put together. And I probably should read them because they put the work into it. But you and I have known each other for a very long time. Long before I became president of the CTA, we had the opportunity to work on ADA issues and disability rights. And I have known you to be a passionate advocate and defender of the rights of people with disabilities for, a good portion of my career. I don't think there's much more I can add to the legacy that you've already established in that arena. And when I look back on the things that you've done at CTA and the voice that you lended to the disability community, it has certainly, made CTA a better agency. And I think that for all of us in these jobs that we serve in, when it comes time for us to leave, that's the one thing that we hope is the benefit of our time and years of service, that we left the agency in a better place than it was when we got here. And I don't think there's any question in my mind, Kevin, that you did that. I would be remiss if I didn't point to one of the biggest things that you did during your tenure here, which of course was the work that you did and the advocacy that you engaged in for the creation of the All-Station Accessibility Plan. As you know, that set the blueprint for getting CTA to 100% accessibility. But more important than that, it became the foundation for the conversations that I had with Senator Duckworth that ultimately led, for the first time in the history of this country, a dedicated revenue source to support the accessibility needs for people with disabilities on transit systems. You not only had an impact at the local level, Kevin, you had an impact at the national level. And I can tell you, and I know Senator Duckworth has told you, that she looked at CTA as the model for what it is that transit agencies should be doing all around the country to address the still, inappropriate and unnecessary lack of accessibility on our systems. So the impact that you've had on transit goes way beyond CTA. You have been a leader at both the local, regional, and national level on disability rights. But more importantly, or just as important, is that you have had a voice on CTA's board that went beyond just accessibility issues. I think my staff will tell you that when they sit down to brief you, you regularly come up with the one question that no one thought of until we briefed you on it. Your insightfulness, your understanding of our system, your concern about all of our customers, not just those with disabilities, has been a pleasure to have as a voice on this board. It has certainly allowed us and made us think twice, think long and hard about what we should do, why we should do it, and most importantly, how we can improve it. So I personally am going to miss you very much. And I know that you're not going anywhere, and I'm sure I'm going to keep seeing you, and you'll still be engaged in all sorts of issues that I'm engaged in. But I just want to personally give you my personal appreciation for our relationship and our friendship over these years, and for the commitment that you made to CTA and to our customers and to our employees. And so with that, there are also a couple of things that I also want to take a moment to do before I finish my remarks. And I have two members of my leadership team that have gifts for you that we'd like to share with you at this time. Our Chief Transit Officer, Donald Bonds, and his group have created a special plaque for you, which I believe Don is going to show. There he is. There it is. If you can, hopefully you can see that, but it's a plaque, and on the plaque it reads, Kevin Irving, an appreciation for your dedicated service, CTA Transit Board 2011 to 2022, with gratitude from the CTA's President's Office. I also have my Chief Infrastructure Officer, Bill Mooney Jr., who has a second gift for you that is very, very unique. In fact, I don't know that I've ever seen a gift like this in my entire career. It was created by members of his team, and I know he's showing that to you now. What it is an elevator call button lamp, which was made especially for you in recognition of your passion for excellence in elevator maintenance and communications about elevator status. We've all appreciated your steadfast push for CTA to constantly improve in that area. And I've already put my order into Bill Mooney to get a similar lamp for me. Director Irving, on behalf of the CTA customers who have taken millions of rides on our buses and trains each year, on behalf of our 11,000 employees, and as I indicated earlier, for me personally, I want to thank you for everything you have done for this agency and for caring so deeply about those who needed your voice. We will continue to focus on the issues you've highlighted over the years, and we wish you well in the next chapter of civic leadership and disability inclusion advocacy. I can tell you that you will be certainly sorely missed. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you, President Carter, and thank you to all of the board members for your comments on behalf of Kevin. And Kevin, we wish you the best.
Chairman Barkley, may I take a moment?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you for your words and the heart behind them. This is a really, really bittersweet day for me. I'm a transit lifer, as you all know, and I have been saying we when referring to the CTA for many years now, and it is going to be strange to no longer be part of that, we as a board member. But certainly in my heart, I'm always part of that we. But it started back in '97. I moved to Chicago, and I was riding the 146 bus on Lakeshore Drive, sometimes standing on the bottom step, just a few inches away from the pavement on Lakeshore Drive, on a fully packed bus, and it extended to many more years of riding buses and trains, and then raising my now 16-year-old daughter on the CTA, and included a lawsuit against the CTA back in 2000 for not doing enough to make sure that it was accessible to people with disabilities, and that led to a fantastic settlement agreement that I worked on at Equip for Equality, and that led to me joining the CTA's ADA Advisory Committee and the Infrastructure Accessibility Task Force. But you know, it's the thing that I learned the more I got to know CTA, both from as outside perspective and then from an inside perspective. It's just how many amazing people are working at CTA, and you know, President Carter, from you all the way on down to there's some amazing people working as customer service assistants in the rail stations, bus operators, rail operators, the folks working to repair the system, to fix the tracks, to fix the elevators. I mean, to you know, clean up the stations. There's some really terrific people at CTA that I've met over the years, and I think that's something that I've always felt like people don't give this, you know, the really great people at CTA enough credit for all the things that work well, because you know, we provide so many rides every day, and when things go badly or don't work well, you hear about that, but you don't hear about all the rides that go smoothly and go well. And so I really appreciate the hard work that everyone brings to their jobs at CTA. And but I also want to say it's been a tremendous learning experience as a CTA board member, and it's led to some great moments. And one thing I just want to share is early on in my tenure in the board, I was riding on the Brown line with my daughter Dominica, taking her home from school, and it was a stormy day, and she was probably about 7 at this point, and we left the Rockwell station on the Brown line and headed towards my eventual stop at Kedzie, and a tree had fallen across the tracks, and so the train was halfway out of the station, pouring rain outside, thunder, lightning, and the train operator stopped the train, and then came on the intercom and said, "Well, folks, there's a tree across the tracks up ahead, and I'm not really sure what to do here. So just hang tight, and I'll let you know." And then, you know, gets off the PA, and my daughter Dominica says, "Dad, you're a CTA board member. Go do something. Come on, Dad, you remember the CTA board?" I'm like, "Shh, I can't do anything about this. I can't fix this." But even though I was not as all powerful as my daughter may have thought I was in terms of the CTA back when she was 7, it's been a fun challenge to try and figure out ways that I could impact the CTA in my time as a board member. And I've really appreciated the partnership from so many other amazing board members beyond this terrific crew I've got right here today. My running buddy on the CTA, Ashish Sen, you know, Jackie Grimshaw, John Bowman, Andre Youngblood, Arabella Alvarez Rosales, of course, Terry Peterson. And I know I'm gonna miss some great folks that served on the board, but there have been some really terrific folks that have committed to this public service, and I appreciate what everyone has done to support the CTA. And I hope I can still serve on the ASAP working group and keep a little finger in the CTA and not leave completely, because yeah, I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to continue to share my perspectives and insights when I've got them. But I also want to say, you guys have got a great board member coming on board. Michelle Lee is going to be sitting in this seat pending City Council approval. She's going for the Transportation Committee of the City Council tomorrow. And she's a fantastic and passionate disability activist, and has been advocating for accessibility on the CTA for a number of years. She's going to bring new energy, different energy than I've got, and I think that's invaluable. And I got a shout out to Mayor Harold Washington, who just he would have turned 100 this week if he was still with us, because when disability activists were fighting for access to buses and trains in the 70s and 80s, and especially in the 80s, he appointed disability rights activist Jim Charlton to the CTA board in '86, who was the lone voice on the CTA board at that time saying we should have lifts on buses. And Jim was a wheelchair user, and he's a good friend. And that was a big commitment. And since then, this seat has been held by a disability advocate, from Karen Disher after Jim Charlton left, to Jack Catlin, and then Harry Chandler, and then me. But it really goes back to Mayor Harold Washington. So his impact continues to touch all of us today, and I'm ever in debt to his commitment to inclusion. So anyway, I could ramble a lot more, but because I do love talking about transit, but we got to move on. And I just want to say, stay in touch. I will definitely be around, and I will be watching from the distance. And I wish we could be in person, so we could say our farewells in person. But thank you again. Thanks for everything. And I wish you all the best. And I am excited to see President Carter, what you continue to accomplish, because your leadership on the CTA has been inspiring, has been groundbreaking, and I can't thank you enough for your deep commitment to accessibility and disability inclusion and the ASAP plan and making that a reality. And I'm excited to see it happen, and I'm excited that Michelle will have a chance to be part of that happening as well. So thank you, and I'll see you all around on the CTAs, on the buses and trains. Oh, and I will be getting a CTA tattoo soon, but I got to design it first. Thank you.
That might be a first here. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much. We will now take up board item number 5.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
Chairman Barkley, I did not put in your remarks that we need to have a motion to approve the resolution for Kevin.
I'm so sorry.
My mistake.
You want me to make it?
We can entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
That motion is moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
and Director Irvine,
I'll abstain.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes and 1 abstention, sir.
Thank you. We will now take up board item number 5, a resolution setting the date of the April 2022 Chicago Transit Board regular meeting. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Director Jakes.
A question. I'm unsure what's happening here.
This is just a resolution setting today's meeting because it's not out of our regular
Oh,
cycle.
okay. Got it. Yeah. Okay. I got it. I forgot we were supposed to meet last week. Okay. Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes, sir.
Our next order of business is board agenda item number 5C. I will now entertain a motion to approve an ordinance appointing a trustee and an alternate to the Board of Trustees of the Retirement Plan for Chicago Transit Authority employees.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes, sir.
Our next order of business is agenda item number 5D. I will now entertain a motion to approve an ordinance appointing an alternate to the Board of Trustees of the Chicago Transit Authority Retiree Healthcare Trust.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes, sir.
Our next order of business today is a report from the Committee of Finance, Audit and Budget. Chairman Silver.
The Finance Audit and Budget Committee met earlier this morning. The committee reviewed the finance report and approved the March 9 committee minutes. The committee reviewed 3 ordinances. An ordinance authorizing a co-promotional trade agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events for 2022. An ordinance authorizing the continuation of University Pass, UPass, contract terms previously amended due to the COVID-19 pandemic for the summer 2022 term. An ordinance authorizing an amendment to a sublease to Chicago Public Schools for space located at 567 West Lake Street, Chicago, Illinois. The committee also reviewed 7 contracts. The committee approved the 3 ordinances and the 7 contracts and placed them on the omnibus and recommended board approval of the omnibus. And that concludes my report, Chairman Barkley.
Thank you, Chairman Silver. And now I have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Silver.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, second by Director Ortiz. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes, sir.
Our next order of business is the construction report. Bill Mooney.
Good morning, Directors. Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. We'll begin our monthly update where we normally do on Your New Blue Signals project. Next slide, please. So work continues in the commissioning of the new system at O'Hare and that cutover. This is one of the last 2 major milestones in the project. The last piece will be done at Rosemont, where our yard and shop is based. And kind of another key piece of this is the Rosemont equipment is actually in factory testing, which is a kind of a key aspect. This is the last of the equipment being developed and constructed for field installation, and it going through factory acceptance makes us one step closer to completion of this project. I'll move forward with some photos. So at O'Hare, which is in the subway here, you'll see something a little different here than what you've seen kind of historically on the project, is we're actually installing a series of lights. These lights help illuminate switches and signals when people are working out there as well. It helps really brighten up the area. So here's some of that switch lighting being installed in the ceiling there. Next picture, please. Similar you've seen on some of the other wayside infrastructure. So all the wiring that comes from the relay houses, or in this case, these are rooms, come out the junction boxes in the field where they're actually terminated and connected to wayside apparatuses. It's no different here in the subway, and you can see that work that's occurring as that wiring gets pulled through a series of duct banks and ultimately up to these junction boxes, and then it gets re-terminated at field apparatuses. Next slide, please. Our next project is our Jackson Power Track and Structure Improvement Project, our in-house program on the south side. So this work is predominantly completed at 61st Interlocking, and the track work is pushed south of there towards 63rd Street. And as well as the structural renewal is coming quickly to completion with 1 weekend worth of work out there left. We can move to some photos of the work that's going on here. Here's this completed work at 61st Interlocking. This is a very complicated series of track work to be doing. We did most of this work under traffic, where we were able to get these long ties fed in from support from the access on the yard. It was a really great effort on the crew to kind of do that and do that safely. Next slide. And here again is some of the structure work. So as I've mentioned before, this work is occurring under weekend line cuts sporadically to support this, as the work is all occurring over 63rd Street. And you get a sense of the amount of infrastructure that has to go in place just to support the renewal of that work. And so here's a series of structural support, temporary structural supports that go up to hold the structure in place while we take apart the components and replace them with new fabricated components. And all that work is occurring kind of in one weekend window of 36 hours where we put everything in place, we support the structure, we take it apart, we put in the new component and put it back together and clear the street. Next slide, please. This is our Irving Park Escalator and Canopy replacement program. Project remains on schedule and on budget. And we're moving kind of out of quickly into the installation of the escalators at Irving Park and finishing up the work on that side and starting to get ready to start installing new canopy, as well as kind of moving to the plasticky side for the completion side of this project. Next slide. So last month I showed you kind of the demolition of the existing escalator unit. Here's, we started putting it back in place. So here they're forming out the new substructure for that escalator. It has a slightly different base to it, and so they need to form a new footprint for it. Next slide. Here's that new escalator at the factory being factory acceptance tested. Very similar to what we do with signal systems or other complex systems. We actually put them through a series of tests in the factory before we accept them on site to make sure they work as designed and fully functional. Here's the next slide. Very similar to the demolition, the construction goes in the same process. So we're bringing it in segments and moving it up through a series of chain mechanisms that are up through the stairwell until it gets in place, and then we bolt it into the next section and keep working our way back down to that last piece is mounted and can be supported by its own weight. Next slide, please. This is Kevlar Edmonds and Sacramento Substation. This is a part of our Blue Line traction power upgrades projects. It remains on schedule and on budget. We move towards the slides. We're very excited to start receiving equipment on site. So the first of the lineups, as you've seen kind of a lot of these substation projects is coming in place here, and that's lineup number 2, where we're actually on the process of decommissioning that lineup equipment so we can bring in the new equipment. This is an interior photo showing the rectifiers, which is the equipment that converts it to DC power. Next slide. Here we are taking apart those. Now these units are from the 1980s, and we have a lot of equipment left in our system in that generation. Parts are kind of hard to come by. So as we retire out some these pieces of equipment, we actually salvage spare parts off of them to keep the other parts of our system operating safely and functional. Next slide. And one of the things that kind of comes up with most of this when we do these equipment upgrades is the footprint of the new equipment is significantly bigger than the older equipment. And so we actually have to expand the footprint of the pads that the concrete pads that support the equipment. So that's what you're seeing here. Next slide. This is our non-revenue rail vehicle maintenance facility. Work continues on schedule on budget, mostly in the design validation phase as we move into permitting and kind of our advanced work on the site. Here's a couple of photos of I've shown you kind of soil borings going on. This is the rock coring process. We're actually going down to the bedrock to get the depth and loading criteria on those segments of rock for the foundations of this new facility. So there's a couple of photos of that advanced work. Next slide. Here's another example of that going on. Next slide. And one new slide we're introducing is we are coming back into our Refresh and Renew program with the spring. So next month I'll have photos of the full program and we'll start talking about details of the stations, but this gives you a sense of the scope for this year. We are going after 28 stations. So we are going after another aggressive program. This is on top of the 35 we did last year. So this is another different 28 stations that we'll be doing this year with a full renewal, which includes the lighting, the painting, the repairs, the infrastructure upgrades. And then we will be finishing off our SBE painting program, which was 92 stations that we started in the fall of last year, with the remaining 58, some of which were recently awarded by the board under contract last board meeting. So more details and exciting kind of footprint pictures of the work we're doing out in the field with our forces, on our stations and the, kind of that footprint for our customers and their experience out there. But I wanted to give you a sense of what's coming ahead and let you know that we're getting going in the spring. And with that, I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions, Chairman Barkley?
No questions. Thank you, Bill.
Director Irving?
No questions, Bill, but just thank you so much to you and your team for all of the work you're doing and have done and will be doing, and for your incredible commitment to accessibility. In my time in the CTA, it's been a pleasure to work with you. And you and your team have always been so tremendously responsive whenever I brought any issues up or asked any questions. And so I I really appreciate the partnership, and I appreciate all the hard work that you and everyone that you work with is doing. So keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And I would also say thank you to you as well. When I started in my role, we rode home on the train on some occasions when our schedules timed up, and I really always appreciated your perspective from both the community standpoint, but also just from how to work with the board and serve you better and to serve the community better. And I really, really appreciated that honest insight. So.
Director Ortiz, any questions?
No additional questions. Thank you.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Silva?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
All right, thank you. Chairman, we're finished with Bill Mooney's report.
We will now call on Chris Rochelle and Brittany Johnson to make their RPM and diversity presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. Directors. Chris Bouchel, your Chief RPM Officer. The RPM Phase 1 design build contract continues on budget and tight to schedule. It's been a busy month. We've seen a lot of work on the bypass. Actually, not so much on the bypass itself, more on that segment. We put a temporary track in place and have started demolition or continued demolition of the westernmost tracks of those the westernmost tracks in that 4-track corridor. It's really starting in earnest with the modernization effort for the existing railroad, the bridge under, if you will. We've done the bridge over now, the bypass, and we're working on the bridge under. The corridor signal improvements continue with various testing and testing work and decommissioning of existing systems, looking toward the installation of new ones north of the project area. And then Lawrence to Bryn Mawr mostly continues with the installation of the segmented box girder bridge in various stages. So you'll see some pictures of that as we go to the next slide. So I spoke of some of the work we're doing. There is an important setup for doing the modernization. You can see here in the photograph where we've removed the track from a section from the western pair of tracks as we start to do the removal of that track system or that track and structure system and the installation of a new modern system in its place. But in order to do that, we had to install the temporary track. And you can see kind of in the left side of this photograph towards the buildings, a track that has emerged out of nowhere. We built it over the course of the last year and particularly over the course of the last winter. The contractor deserves some significant credit for completing this work over the winter, much of it, and the preliminary track work associated with it. They deserve significant credit for doing that over the winter as well as during a pandemic. We have seen some weathering issues, preliminary weathering issues on the bypass itself. We have detected a limited number of surface non-structural spalls on the bypass. I want to assure the board that we're inspecting these daily and proactively removing any loose concrete associated with them. The contractor is determining a likely cause, and will repair these at their own expense over the course of the summer and the fall. If we could advance to the next slide. This shows you some of the work that we did preliminary to putting this temporary track in place. This track really enables us to sort of move around the existing tracks. Tracks 1 and 2 are the westernmost tracks, so that we can continue with our modernization work. Next slide. And of course, at Lawrence to Bryn Mawr, we continue with drilling caissons. We continue with the assembly of the columns and the caps on top of that. And then finally, the erection of the segmented box girder. If we go to the next slide. There you go. We're doing about a span a week up here. We'll shortly be moving over various new areas heading south with this bridge. So it's exciting to see it come into form. Next. Kind of giving you a picture of what it looks like. You can see some of the night work over my shoulder, my background. In some cases, when we're working over busy streets, we need to close those streets. We do it at night to minimize impact to traffic during the day. We do the erection of the segment and and then proceed with day work after that and for smaller neighborhood streets. Next. And our outreach has continued as well. We've provided various updates to the 44th Ward, project updates to the 48th Ward in the Lawrence to Brigmar segment. We've had a very exciting name the gantry presentations to elementary school students. We've had some great ideas from them, really positive and fun engaging with the community in that regard. We are beginning to look at art with Bill and his staff for the RPM red line stations and structures. We have distributed various community flyers in regard to some of that demolition work you've seen. You can imagine that that creates some impacts. We want to make sure people are aware and can plan ahead for that. We've also had various meetings about transit-oriented design in the area of the segment of box girder and the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr segment. Virtual office hours, and we continue to put out our newsletters and various other pieces of information to the community to make sure they're informed, both from a ridership perspective as well as a construction impact perspective. With that, I will turn it over to diversity and Brittany.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, directors. Brittany Johnson, Manager, Diversity Programs. Diversity continues to meet with the contractors monthly to discuss DBE and workforce outreach and compliance. We also continue to send out opportunities from wash floor to the DBE community so they are aware of the trade packages and how to submit their bids. On April 12th, we hosted an RPM workforce outreach event in the Red Line Extension footprint. The event was hosted at Olive Harvey College and focused on inviting individuals seeking a career in the trades and existing union members seeking employment opportunities on RPM. The event featured a presentation with speakers from CTA, Wash Floor, and our RPM workforce partners, which is Hire 360 and the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership. Following the presentation, the over 60 attendees were invited to network with representatives from various unions, subcontractors, and workforce assist agencies involved on the RPM project. As of March 31st, DBEs have been awarded over $199 million between the design and construction packages. Additionally, those $199 million has been awarded to 71 unique DBE firms. This is the result of the outreach that has been conducted by CTA and the Prime to ensure the entire DBE community is aware of the opportunities on the project. One of the goals of RPM was to engage with DBEs that had never participated on a CTA project, and some of these firms are well established and some are new to the industry. Of the 71 unique firms, 27 are new to CTA. On the workforce side, as of March 31st, over 1,400 unique individuals have worked over 676,000 labor hours and earned over $38.6 million. These represent family-sustaining, middle-class jobs, which is why we continue to outreach to the community to ensure the residents of economically disadvantaged areas have the resources to access these careers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris and Brittany. Are there any questions, board members?
No questions, thank you.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
No questions.
No question.
Thank you.
No questions, but Chris, I also want to thank you for everything you've done to educate me in my 10 plus years on the board about all of these different complex issues, and for your deep commitment to the CTA and to the work that you're doing, you and your team is doing, because I know you've got an incredible team working with you, and I've learned a lot from you over the years, and I appreciate everything that you've done to make the system work better, more smoothly, faster, and more accessible. And I'm excited to see the RPM project go and continue, and I may be logging in to check these infrastructure updates, since they will now be on YouTube. So thank you.
Well, if you are going to get a CTA tattoo, Director Irvine, maybe you should consider a micropile rig as part of that tattoo.
You send me a design drawing, and I'll definitely put that under consideration.
All right.
Thank
It's been
you.
great working with you.
You too.
Before we move on to new business, So President Carter, perhaps you can give us an update on the mask mandate or issues involving masks.
Absolutely, Chairman Barkley. I think that if anybody's been following the mask conversation on public transit over the last 24 hours, you know that it's been somewhat of a roller coaster ride of activity. And certainly yesterday was a very interesting day as we sort of maneuvered our way through the impact of the court's decision to strike down the CDC guidance requiring masks on public transportation. One of the things you may remember as a board is that we actually passed a board ordinance, I guess almost 2 years ago, implementing a mandatory mask policy on CTA. That ordinance was predicated on both the federal directive and also what I think a lot of people have forgotten over the time, the governor's order, both of which mandated masks on public transportation. When the CDC announced that they were no longer enforcing their directive, a lot of people thought that that meant CTA would automatically drop the mandate, when in fact that was not the case, because the governor's order still was in effect and still required masks as a mandatory requirement for riding public transportation. That led to a whole bunch of meetings and conversations yesterday about what the governor was going to do and if the governor was going to modify his ordinance. And I can tell you that not only was I involved in, or I say our office was involved in conversations, I know that Metro and Pace were having similar conversations, and all three of us were trying to stay coordinated on what we were saying to the public with regards to the requirement for wearing masks on our systems. As a result of that coordination, you may recall that all three of us issued initial statements to the media indicating that masks would continue to be required on public transportation. And that position remained in effect until the governor announced yesterday afternoon that he was modifying his order to remove the mandatory requirement for masks on public transportation. After the governor made that modification, we then had no real legal basis to mandate masks on public transportation anymore. And so we modified our statement that masks are no longer required, but we're certainly encouraged when riding public transportation, which is the position and the policy that we have in place today. As a result of that decision, we have begun the process of taking down all the signage requiring masks on CTA system. We have stopped the digital advertising and informational information we were putting up on our digital signs about mandatory masks. And we're now converting to what I would call a mask encouragement policy, for lack of a better word, where we will roll out appropriate signage and information to our customers, reminding them of the importance of wearing masks and encouraging them to wear masks, as they deem appropriate when riding public transportation. With regards to our employees, that is still a work in progress. For now, they're not required to wear masks, but we are looking at whether we should have some sort of unique policy for our employees, and we obviously need to talk to the union regarding that. But at this point, we're encouraging them to continue to wear masks. Obviously, they are exposed to many of our customers over the course of their day, particularly our frontline employees. And we still strongly believe that masks are one of the best protections that you can have against coming in contact with someone who may be carrying the virus itself. So it is still a work in progress as we go forward. Who knows what the future is going to hold on any of this stuff? As you know, and as you lived with me over the last 2 years, you never get comfortable in predicting what this virus is going to do or what it may mean in terms of CTA, and we will continue to review and evolve our policies as we go forward to make sure we're doing the best we can to protect both our employees and our customers as they use public transportation in the future.
Thank you, President Carter. Any questions or comments from board members? Okay.
No comments or questions.
Thank you.
Next order of business is new business. Is there any new business today, Greg?
No, sir, there is not.
So there's no further business to come before the board. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Irving,
For the last time, yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
The motion passes with 6 yes votes, sir, so we are adjourned.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.